It could be something that's been conjured, something they've brought forth. They haven't sent it back.
I think he's trying to signal, like, give us signs, like, that he wants us to go back and finish off what he couldn't do himself physically because...
Maybe he didn't know how to get rid of it.
On Friday, February the 27th, 1970, there was a massive plot twist. Suddenly, we have a new paranormal investigator, Sean Manchester, who's also seen the evidence of satanic strangeness, who has concluded that it's a vampire in there.
Our first report indicated that there may be a vampire in Highgate Cemetery. A spectre was seen at that gate there, appearing to come from here, which leads to the catacombs.
Was seen by who?
Passers-by, residents, people whom we interviewed.
Not only a vampire, but in fact, he says it is a king vampire of the undead.
He provides real evidence, eyewitnesses. He names them. Barbara and Elizabeth, two young girls who were harassed by this figure.
As far as we know, it has only physically attacked one male person who has passed by the gate, but there are others who amply attest to have been visited by it in their beds at night.
According to Manchester's account, she describes this beast, if you will, that's coming to her room as having the face of a wild animal with glaring eyes and sharp teeth. But it is a man with the expression of an animal. The face is gaunt and gray.
She woke in the morning to discover 2 red marks on her neck after experiencing not a nightmare, but an evil experience which only she could describe herself, where she felt she had been visited by something exceedingly wicked.
That is like a bomb has just exploded in this story. Vampire hysteria gripped not just London, but the whole of the southeast of England. Suddenly, vampires were real. And it wasn't just that people were sitting back and reading about it in the newspapers. They wanted to physically be a part of the story and join in the legend.
Satan, get you behind me and be gone from this place forever.
Sean Manchester really completely stolen David Farrant's thunder. The television people got hold of the story and they wanted to run it at their prime time, tea time slot.
Imagine the scene. It's Friday the 13th. It takes place in Highgate Cemetery. Now, the footage has long been lost, but what happens next is unbelievable.
Mr. Manchester, however, said on the TV programme that I intended to go back to the cemetery that night and I was going to stake the king vampire. All hell literally broke loose at Highgate Cemetery. People were literally swooping down there in droves.
They had their crucifixes, their knives, their beer bottles, and they were swarming over the gates of Highgate Cemetery in a completely uncontrolled way to just run riot in the cemetery at midnight.
The cemetery itself was surrounded by police cars.
It's carnage. The cemetery was desecrated.
The corpses had been staked with metal bars because of this ridiculous vampire story.
One on the left-hand side here, the doors were broken open. The coffin was half pulled over and a big iron stake was stuck through into the coffin.
Manchester is at the heart of it. The next morning, well, nobody killed a vampire, but the story of the Highgate vampire is very much alive.
night begins.
The moment I got there, my stomach flopped. It's like going over a hill really quick. There's definitely something in the centre. It just... If you... That's it. More to the right. Go back a bit, go back. So,
The gravestone's behind the tree, yeah?
yeah. You see it? Definitely something standing right there.
That's where the tombs begin. That's the entrance.
Is that the entrance?
At the top, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I don't sense David here. I don't sense the entity here.
Okay.
I mean, there's a lot of activity going on, but it's not what we're after, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think we're going to need to retrace David's steps.
See if we can pick up on anything.
Yeah.
It's not just at Highgate Cemetery this tall dark figure has been reported. It's been reported in the old Gatehouse pub, bottles flying off the shelves. In fact, I believe in the Gatehouse, where this tall dark figure had been sighted. At that time, the late 60s, it became so bad that the bar staff, barmaids refused to go down into the downstairs area where this figure started to be seen again.
That's crazy, isn't it?
So it's on this location then.
Yeah. The pub. I think if we have a walk round, see what we pick up.
Yeah. That's the best thing to do, isn't it? Down to the basement, guys. There's someone here, can you give me a sign? Colette, whoa, the camera's gone fucking blurry, man. What the fuck? So you can just see the camera's gone completely blurry. Man. Come up them stairs. Who's that? Well, the entities obviously is quite frightening, but that's what we do. That's what we enjoy to do. You just gotta be brave. If you show weakness, it will pick you and obviously try to attach to you. Guys. This is another location of David's. Investigators been spending a lot of his time here. As you can see, the camera keeps going blurry, out of focus. So for me, that's the sign that there's something here. I don't know what I think here is. Fuck. Down here, I feel like I'm being watched. Like, I don't know. Like coming down the stairs and the camera losing focus like that. Who's here with me? My name's Alex. What's your name? Goosebumps. Fuck. Man. It just felt like there's something standing there at the bottom of the stairs. Definitely some sort of entity there. Guys. The REM pod's going off. The REM pod's going off. Oh. I feel everything just start triggering off like the REM pods, the EMF reader. The REM pod's gone off over there as well. That's the other REM pod going off. Touch this device in my hands. Whoa, what's that?
I felt something touch my head.
That's the temperature, isn't it?
That's the temperature.
Whoa, mate, I felt something. My hair went like that. I felt it again.
Yeah.
There's no wind or air conditioning floating this way.
It's really, really cold here. Can you feel how cold it is in this area?
It's cold.
Fucking crazy. It's quite intense. Definitely something there. Like, where we sat, mainly where the REM pod was, and I did start to feel some sort of like an entity being there, a really strong evil presence, and I was worried he was going to overtake me. David said that it moved from location to location at certain points. I can definitely confirm that whatever is in Highgate Cemetery is definitely travelling to the Highgate pub as well. I think we need to review more evidence on it, listening to David a bit more, what other locations, I guess, that he's picked at it.
The story is now developing really quickly. David recounted to me that in the summer of 1970, he went back to Highgate Cemetery with the intention of banishing the entity.
We decided to try and make communication with this entity, whatever it was. At that period, I was experimenting with the forbidden rituals, some of which involved sex. I felt was a key to reaching other levels of consciousness. It's a very dangerous thing to do because it's said that anyone that attempts this can actually be taken over, become possessed, or rendered insane. I don't regret it because no one was ever harmed, no one was ever injured, hurt. But it did give me quite a bad reputation.
I knew about the Highgate vampire from my teenage years. For the long period I knew David, he never believed it was a blood-sucking vampire. But yeah, I did think to myself at the time that there was a lot more to David Ferrant than what he's actually letting on. We're heading off to 1 Avenue Road. We always used to refer to it as the haunted house. As a kid, we used to play around here. And we always used to dare each other to come over here to this house. Sometimes there was like strange sounds, chanting and all that sort of thing going on. After I met David, what I learned, obviously much later, is that David used to conduct some of his magical rituals here. And this must have been happening in and around the time that I was playing here as a kid. As to really why he was doing it, I really don't know. And I did ask him a few times, but I don't think he really wanted to talk to me about something that I would have very limited understanding of.
From that time on, David Farrant was in the newspapers all the time. Unfortunately, it was for all the wrong reasons.
He's also starting to get arrested. He's arrested 3 times in the span of approximately a year.
The worst thing that happened was there was a body that had been dragged from its coffin and it was placed into a brand new Mini Cooper that was parked over there. In the morning, the body was placed on the road just there. It was a very gruesome sight. It was the local papers that picked it up, and it soon went national news. Now, because David Ferrant had already been arrested 3 times previous to this, he was the most likely suspect.
3 weeks later, they raid his home and arrest him yet again. David is given a 4.5-year sentence.
I certainly think, in retrospect, in fact, even then, that I was made a scapegoat for not only all the vandalism at Highgate Cemetery, but for the whole, what I believed in.
You would think with Ferrant in prison the story would just die down, but it revs up and goes absolutely ballistic. In 1974, while Ferrant's in prison, Manchester tracks it down to this neo-Gothic mansion. Find the vampire in the basement, they find the casket, and finally, dramatically, Manchester takes that stake and rams it through his heart. If that's not enough, he goes out to the car, gets some petrol, comes back, and sets the body alight.
Guys, we made it to Highgate Woods. We're going to go to the Witch's Coven. Are you guys ready for this?
Geared up, let's go. I'm ready for this.
Ready to go, yeah? How you feeling, guys?
I'm feeling rather dizzy right now. It's really strong.
You feel it, yeah?
Yeah.
It's very quiet in there, isn't it? Can't hear any animals. Any birds like flapping or, you know.
Hello, is anyone with us down here? You in the bushes?
We're literally meters away from the Witch's Coven. They're surrounded in oak trees. I'm getting spikes. See that bang over there?
Yeah, that's a snap.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Did you just say fuck up?
Yeah.
One of you two?
No.
Right. Why?
You all right, mate?
Fucking hell, yeah.
You want to sit down on that bench? Down on that bench a second. You're going to fucking...
I'm starting to feel drained as well, to be fair.
Starting to feel that we're being watched, mate. Who's out there?
So we know we shouldn't be there because we're not witches, warlocks. We're forbidden to be there. Behind us, behind you, behind you, behind you. You not hear that?
Yes. Hello, who is it?
Did you not hear the spike then?
It's fucking...
Who is it?
It's
Mate,
gonna
my hairs on my legs are just gone ping.
This is fucking fucked up.
Come on.
It's gonna be okay, guys. Come on, we can do it. We've got the strength. Not come across that before. I never felt so weak and felt so vulnerable at that time. You can hear it all around you, can't you? Twigs snapping and stuff.
I feel weak at the minute.
Yeah, same. Do you think it's taking all our energy? It's draining us.
It is draining us.
So
Whatever it was draining me. It just felt like what David had said in his videos. I definitely agree with him.
So guys, we're going to use the spirit box to try and communicate with the witches, what's here, all the entities. What entity is here with us? What did they say then?
You'd like to talk to us?
What's down in these woods?
There you go.
What?
Right.
What? What?
Mate, fuck that.
What? Wow, man.
Mate, you should have that on camera.
No, I was looking at this.
You should have heard it.
Mate, it's loud as fuck over there.
What was it?
When I said, look, come and talk to us, it went, over there.
Come and talk to us, please. Are you the entity?
In all of my experience of being paranormal investigator, that ranks the top. It's quite dark, you know. Just felt like I've been pushed.
I can see you move then, yeah, like someone pushed you.
I'm not gonna lie, it was out there. It felt like it was out there. Even with my psychic ability, I couldn't see it. Which, that's the scariest part.
Just fucking hear that again.
It's the pain. I think we should get out of there.
Because it could just jump from behind you and you wouldn't really know.
That big tree, that torch behind you, I thought I'd see something, a big thing there.
Not scary.
Let's go. Claire said we gotta go, let's go, mate. Get the fuck out of there.
This is the last entry for David Ferrant in the Hammond High, and it's his obituary. He died aged 73. I think that although this is his obituary and this is the last thing that we're going to read about him doing, it seems like he's always going to, some part of him is always going to live on as part of this story.
I haven't been inside for 2.5 years. Yeah, this was David's flat, the very top flat. He lived here for such a long time that his being must resonate in these walls. And I do feel it. I do feel there's a strange presence, yeah. I think David did try to get away from the Highgate Vampire because he tried to concentrate on other psychic investigations, but it was like, when they say all roads lead to Rome, all roads led back to the Highgate Vampire for David. Effectively, it was like a curse in a way.
I would say in some respects, with the vampire, and I use that word in quotes, at Highgate Cemetery, well, I suppose really ultimately, or I suppose really I was its ultimate victim.
What? That's David. David, you here with us?
If this video is really showing David Farrant in Highgate Cemetery, what this is really telling us is that even after death, you're still trapped by this story that engulfed you in your life. What if that's the curse of the Highgate Vampire? Even in death, you can't escape it.
Is there someone here that will talk to me? Can you talk to us, please?